Hello everyone and welcome back to Call Sign Charlie Models for part 3 of the Italeri 132nd Panavia Tornado build. I'm doing this one as a GR1 from Desert Storm, so definitely got a good amount of work to do, and this is going to really look good with the British Desert Pink when it's all said and done. So in part 2 we got the wings done, the fuselage all put together, and now what we're doing is we have a few little areas to take care of with some putty work, and then that part will be done. I do have the exhaust or reverse thrusters and this tail section all painted up. It's got the matte coat on it right now, so that's drying. So by the time I get done with sanding everything, that should be dry enough to assemble and put into the model right here. So definitely making some good headway along with this kit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start wet sanding these areas, and then after I'm done sanding with the 400 grit sandpaper, I'm going to start working my way up to where it's nice and polished, and then we do have some detail to revive from what we lost when we were sanding. So I'm going to stop talking now and we'll get to work. Alright, so we're done with the 400 grit sandpaper, and now we're going to move on to the 600. Use the Infinity sanding sponges right here. and then just gonna go and move forward. As you saw up front, I already hit it up with this sanding stick, so I'm not gonna need to hit up the underside with this one again, but just on these areas and some of the newer areas, I'm gonna hit these up again real quick with this. Then after that, we'll be moving up to, I think, an 800, if I can find my 800 sanding stick. I got 1500, 1000. Alright, so we'll go from a 800 to a 1000 to a 1500, and I think that should be good enough on the sanding. But we're just gonna, now we're gonna be hitting everything up in a circular motion, just like so. Alright, so 600 is done. Moving on to the 800. Alright, so honestly, after the 800 grit, I think that should be good enough. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my isopropyl alcohol, which is right here, and then a paper towel. I like using the shop towels because they don't produce lint like some of the like paper towels or anything like that regular paper towels use. So I'm just soaking this guy down with the isopropyl alcohol, leaking all over the place, but it really doesn't matter. And then we're just gonna wipe everything down here just to make sure we are kind of dust free. Alright, so that part is all done. Clean up my bench so I don't have Okay, so now we're just going to clean up some of the lines that were lost. And it's real easy because the lines are still there, especially how we didn't have to really go to town on any like fit issues, so really makes life a lot easier on here. But I'm just slowly going over where some of the lines were, and also some of these rivet holes that were made a little bit too shallow. Just hitting those up again. This even works great for like just like right here. The detail's not gone, it's just covered with or filled with putty dust. So all I gotta do is come in here with this needle, clean it out, and boom, all my recessed detail is saved. I said, it's nice that I didn't have to really go to town on anything besides the underside, but even that wasn't really like going to town on a piece. I've had much worse before, and where you completely lose all the detail and have to go from scratch on that. So this is a nice break. Okay, just coming through. Alright, so rescribing, sanding, all done, ready to go. So up next, like I said, I have the thrust reversers drying after the matte coat, so I'm going to let that dry for a little while longer, and then after that's all dry, we're going to get that all assembled as one assembly and then attach that into the fuselage. Then after that we can get it all masked off and ready to go, and then move on with the rest of the fuselage details, which we still have quite a ways to go. Alright, so I'm going to wait for that to dry. I'm going to be back here in 1 second for you, and I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so we are moving along with the Tornado. Got some work done today. Got the exhaust put in, and I wanted to show this off before I get it all masked up, because I am going to be masking it up fairly shortly, right before I get the tail fin on, which I have that built, but I got some more work to do on that. I'll show you here in a second. But the exhaust area is done and all attached, which is looking very, very nice on here. Didn't have much fit issues on it. The exhaust, once I got it pre-staged and trimmed off that one ring that was along this ring right here, it worked pretty well. But I did have a slight issue getting on the thrust reversers on here. Had to sand it down, and I sanded it down a little bit too much, but luckily it's on the bottom side and really won't be seen. So you guys and I will know about it, but not too many other people will know about it. So that's where that is standing right now. All these parts, and I painted these the flesh color, or the body color right now. That way when I mask all of this off, I can just mask it all off in one piece and not have to worry about those right there. Now, moving forward, I got the vertical stabilizer started. We do have some putty work to go on, like where these sensors pop on, which is just a little bit of work, but not much. And then on this piece right here, we do have some putty work to do on that. Now on the underside right here, I had to cut off a good amount of it to get it to fit along with the thrust reversers. As you can see, before it went all the way down to about about here, right? Because it's supposed to go in between of the buckets right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some plastic card, because this was just way too thick, right, to fit in between of the thrust reversers and the buckets. I'm just gonna call them buckets. So it was really too thick to fit in between the buckets, but it does need to go down a little bit down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some plastic card and then get that in. It's going to be nice and thin. It's going to slide in between the buckets, and I'm not going to have an issue with that. And I got the point where it needs to start right here on a pencil, so that way when it's done I can come in and wipe that off and it won't be seen. Now for the vortex generators are on the sides. You can see right here it has some nice start places for it, and it does have photo etch for it right in here, these little pieces. And like I said, it does have a nice little recessed area for those parts to fit in. So I'm actually thinking, because I do have the res kit vortex generators for this as well, and they are very tiny and very small, and what it kind of looks like is that you need to shave off the start points for this and then put these on. But I'm really with the photo etch parts and how this is nice and recessed and how strong these are going to be, I don't see needing those. So I think I'm just going to go with these right here and use the res kit ones as spares just in case any of these break off, but I don't see that being an issue. So up next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the putty on these spots, and I'll probably just use perfect putty because they are fairly decent small gaps, and I do want seam lines to show up there. So the perfect putty will do a little bit of shrinkage, and it will still show the panel lines. It just won't show these giant gaps. So I think that's the way I'm going to do. And also I need to go in and re-rivet this area because there was a piece back here, a little lump that you had to remove for this version, which I am also doing this as a GR1, so the British one. So had to get that off, and then I just got some sanding dust stuck in the rivets and the panel line. So as I showed you in an earlier video, it's really easy to take care of on that. So also it does have a couple photo etch pieces right in these on the grills back here, so that is taken care of as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of the putty on this, and then we're going to add the plastic card piece right down here, get that taken care of. After all that's done and situated, we're going to add the vortex generators onto here, and then we can get this attached into the fuselage. And then after that we have the rest of the spine to go on there as well. So that's where we're standing with the Tornado right now. I'll be back once all the putty is done and the plastic card is done, and basically the entire vertical stabilizer is all done. So I'll see you in 1 second. Okay, so we've made some major fuselage progress on this build right here. As you can tell, we got the vertical stabilizer and the spine on, and also the intakes and these wing fences right here as well. So moving right along with the vertical stabilizer was a perfect fit on that. As you can see, no issues with any of that right there. Now moving on to the spine, we did have a little bit of an issue. I am going to need to sand that down a little bit, so I'll putty that and get that sanded. And then we have a fairly decent gap right in here, and then also down on the bottom right here had also another fairly decent gap. So what I'm going to do on this part at least is I'm going to use some perfect putty, so that way I can just come in with a Q-tip, wipe that off, and don't have to worry about sanding that. And then on here there is a little bit of a step, so I am going to use normal putty for that, but again, like right along in here, again, perfect putty to fill those seams. On this side, it's not very bad, just again, a little bit of perfect putty right down that seam, and that will be fixed. Now moving along to the wing fence area, did have a little bit of a gap right along here. Again, I can't really blame the kit for it because the aftermarket landing gear area might be throwing off the fit on this part right here, because it is right above it. So that fit might be on that. Now with the step between here, after looking at some reference photos, this step is actually there. It's not a smooth transition between the wing glove area and the fuselage, so not really worried about that, but I am going to use some perfect putty just to fill that seam right there. And then the wing droop, again, I'm not sure what that's about, but I am going to need to bring these down to be flush against the wing right here. So moving forward with the intakes, got the intakes on, those look pretty good. Again, I didn't worry about the inside of the intakes because the intake covers did finally come in from Tradewind 67 on YouTube, or not YouTube, on eBay, and they actually, I mean, they fit perfectly. They just slip right over the intakes like so. Let me get that in. Let me get this one in like so. And like I said, perfect slip-on fit for those. Then you also get these back intake covers that slip into here. Again, a perfect fit on those, and that's all going to be painted up. Let me get this one in. Again, just this is going to look really good when it's all done right like that. And you can see the intake covers. Let me flip it around a little bit more. I'll pull it off so we can get an actual close-in look on the intake covers. Let me pull these off. And then it also comes with exhaust covers, but with the Aries exhaust, it does not fit. But I'm not really worried about that because I am not going to be using the exhaust covers for these. So not worried about that. But with the intake covers, it is, like I said, a perfect fit. This is for the Italeri kit. He does have them for the Revell kit as well, and also he does have them in various scales from 1/72, 1/48, and 1/32 scale. So head on over to eBay. The seller is Tradewind 67, and he does have these for sale. And if you can see, the fabric detail on here is actually very nice on here all the way around. So this is going to paint up and weather up to be very nice addition to the model. The inside, there's not much detail, but you can see there is a little bit of detail on there. And for these back pieces right here, I'm going to paint this red. So again, very nice on that. And then for the exhaust plug, if you are using the kit part, again, some nice fabric detail on that. Really going to paint up and weather very nice. And if you want to cover up, if you're using the kit exhaust and cover that up, you can use these as well. So very nice. Decent price for them. The shipping to the US with everything going on was a little bit high, but again, you pay for what you get, and these are definitely going to be worth it because these are covering up all the pin marks on the intakes, and also with it being the aftermarket gear, there were some fit issues with the exhaust area. So that battles that situation right there. So up next, what we got is, again, going to take care of the putty on these areas. Shouldn't take long. And then after that is done, we have a few parts on the underside. Let me get the instructions. Nope, not on that page, this page. Alright, so moving on, we have a few parts to go on here actually just one, this antenna right here, and then we have these doors for the electronics bay. I'm going to have that closed up, and then the tail hook and also this antenna that goes on the nose and the tail right there. And then we start with our pylons. Not worried about these weapons because I'm not using those, but the pylons right here. And fuel tanks are done, pylons, and then we have the aerial refueling boom right here, and then we should be pretty much done with exception of antennas and some pitot tubes and stuff. So just moving right along, and then we have the cockpit to do as well. So moving along, getting a lot done, hopefully be primed here in a few days. So that's where we're standing, and I'll be back in 1 second once I get some of these parts done. Alright, and we're back, and we got a lot done on the Tornado. Had to fix a little seam right up here on the nose because it was a little bit of a step. And then also just added a bunch of the antennas, and on the underside we got the antennas and also the pylons going on right here. Had some tape that stuck to it, but got that done. And then also, like I said, antennas on here as well. So up next, what I got is, because I'm doing a GR1 from Desert Storm, I use the IDS kit, right? And because Italeri does not have a 1/32 GR1 out, or it might not be available anymore. But anyways, with the IDS kit, it does, you can convert it to a GR1, and it does come with pretty much everything except for the clear part that goes up in this sensor right here. So what I did for this was, luckily it comes with the sensor pod, but it does not come with the clear part for it. So what I did was I just used some plastic, clear plastic right here, cut that out, and then got it to shape along here. Got that all glued in, and then after that was done, to give it more of a glass work, I still have some more touch up on the UV resin, but I used the UV resin. I just went over the clear part real quick with it, and just with the UV light, hit it up again, and boom, we're done. Like I said, we do need to do a touch up to it, so I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna get a little bit more out. Then hit it with the UV light. That's done. Alright, so now we get to attach it to the fuselage, and I think it goes right up here. I didn't drill out the holes, but we're gonna get that in right like so, and then we have a little bit of putty to add in depending on the actual correct position of it. I got it to a pretty good point right there, and then yeah, it needs to go farther out. Alright, so that looks like it's the right spot, so we're going to hold it right here. Alright, we're going to also have to use a little bit of putty down here, but that is on me. That's not on the kit. I didn't check the fit of it all the way. I missed a spot, and there's a locator tab that was not in the right position, and it affected the fit. And when I glued it in, all the glue has dried. I even tried softening it up so I could squeeze it back into position. That's not working, so we're just gonna go in with some putty. We need to do some putty work on the bottom of this anyway, so. Okay, we're gonna let that dry. That's good. Check the other side. Flip this around. Make sure I get glue on both sides of it. I also need to do the perfect putty on these. That's not done yet, so that'll be a lot cleaner when it's all done. Alright, that should be good. Let's go ahead and take care of the perfect putty on the pylons. Alright, so that's all done and ready to go. I just, like I said, need a little bit of putty on this side. So we're going to go ahead and start spreading that so that can dry. Then we'll take care of it. Now what I use for this putty is this perfect plastic putty right here. You just apply it, and then after it dries, you can even do it when it's still wet, but you take a wet Q-tip like what you saw me doing on the pylons on the bottom, and then it comes right out. Now, one thing about this that I don't like is that it dries super quick inside the tube. So I am constantly having to, it's perfect the first couple times, but if you have it for more than, say, a month or so, it does get dry. So what I do is I just take a wet applicator right here and I stick it down the tube, kind of rehydrate the inside of the tube, because it is a water-based putty. So I'll just keep on hitting that up and it starts to come out. Then we just come in here and spread it in. And we don't have to be super neat about it because it is a water base and it is super easy to clean up. We don't have to worry about sanding anything. And just come in and spread this in, hopefully. Okay, we'll let that dry for a little while. And then come in and clean that up. After that's done, I'm pretty sure. Alright, so the only thing I have left to add to the actual fuselage, I think, is this part right here, this antenna. I have the pitot tubes and the AOAs cut off, and those are going to be painted separately from the kit and attached at the end right here. And then let's see, canopy stuff we're just going to cut off, paint that separately along with the rear view mirrors and the railings right there. So just cut that, put it in the bin for separate paint. Then moving forward, same thing with the canopy. We do have the ladder to build up, which should not take long. We'll do that here in a second. And then the build is done. So let's set this Tornado off to the side for a second. Actually, we're going to go ahead and attach that antenna real quick while we're here. Have it. That was 7E. Alright, so that's done. We're going to set this off to the side while we wait for that putty to dry. And I'm going to grab the sprues for our ladder, which is this paper right here. So we need sprue C and the photo etch. So we can get a closer look at this grating right here. The detail on it is actually very nice, and you can see even the raised ridges, the grip plates on here. Very nice on that. So that's going to be a nice detail to the ladder right here. So we're going to go ahead and start getting this together. Need 32C, which is this piece. Okay, so the top platform is done. Gonna set that off to the side. Got the actual ladder to build. Alright, so the ladder's done, minus adding the wheels, but I'm going to paint those separately. As you can see, all the parts right there. Going to look really nice when it's all painted and weathered up. And then we have these two wheels right here, really small, as you can see right there. So that's going to go into the bin for paint later on after that fully dries. And then we just have a couple parts to cut off for the canopy right in here, and then this piece for the canopy hold up, and that's it. So that's gonna do it for part 3 of the Italeri 1/32 Panavia Tornado GR1 build. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Up next, what we're going to be doing is masking off the cockpit and the exhaust area and the landing gear wells, getting all that done, and then we're going to start adding primer and everything to this kit. So this is really starting to come to the final leg of the race for this kit, and it's really starting to look good. Once I get the desert tan on it, it's really gonna come to life. So yep, I just have the putty on the underside of here to fix before I start masking everything off. So that's gonna be it for this part of the build. But like I said earlier, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, to like, subscribe, comment down below, and till next time, happy modeling, stay frosty, and model on, and have a great day.